Hello everyone, welcome to Gold Diamond Astro T Magic. We're going to be talking about the full moon on Friday. So for those of you that have seen the other video that I came out with, it had incorrect information. I was saying the full moon was going to be in Gemini, and the full moon has just passed Gemini and gone into Cancer. And the reason is I have this really nice app on my phone that gives me, the astrology of any date that I put in, any date and time. Unfortunately, the app has one major flaw, that sometimes when I change the date, it doesn't change the horoscope, it doesn't change the astrology right away, and I have to reboot my phone so I can actually get it to work correctly. So I got some incorrect information, and so I gave a very long talk, which was incorrect as far as it applying to the full moon. But the way that I interpreted the energies was not correct, but it was just that it wasn't those energies are not being attributed to the full moon. So for those of you that haven't seen that video, just disregard that intro. And for those of you that have, that's for you, obviously. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the houses and what planets or angles are in whatever are in each house, and then I'm going to go through the aspects, and I'm also going to jump around when I see the need to do so. So basically, we have the moon in Leo, this full moon, in the first house, which is really awesome. And this whole full moon is defined by self-love and nurturing yourself, loving yourself through nurturing yourself. And when you nurture yourself, you're basically cultivating that self-confidence about what you want to create, and basically solidifying your positive self-image. Solidifying your positive self-image, for those of you that do manifestation rituals during the new and full moons, that's extremely key to any kind of manifestation. You must love yourself. You must be in a positive state. You must be in a detached state in order to do so. And these are all things that Leo can do. And so the moon is in the first house. I just think it's absolutely fitting. So we have a very powerful, proud energy that's saying, "This is who I am," but it's also it's softened by the moon. So it's a life giver type of Leo, but it's life giving to yourself. Curving back on my own nature, I create again and again. The Bhagavad Gita. It's kind of how the moon Leo in the first house would be perceived. So in the second house, we have the North Node. You can't talk about the North Node without talking about the South Node. So North Node is in Virgo in the second, and South Node is in Pisces in the 8th. So basically, your value is in your ability to research and adapt information that you receive in order to refine what you know. So that's kind of like, duh, we all learn new things in order to refine our sphere of knowledge, our knowledge cache. But this is extremely important now because the South Node is in Pisces. There's so much of a threat of being taken by these illusory realities, many of them propagated by the media, that will lead you to perceive reality in the incorrect way. And the only way that you can really just hone in is that you need to focus on what your values are, what your gifts are, or focus on your values or the way that you see the world, and refine those values through research. Back up what you feel is right with research, basically. Focusing on others' values doesn't help you. Seeing what they care about, and not saying you're indifferent, but only focusing on that doesn't really help you, because it's really more focusing on what makes you valuable and what you can give. Now, you may have been ignoring what you're able to contribute and falsely believing you had nothing and that others had everything. Unfortunately, you may have been too dependent or addicted to the value others appear to have. And so what this is going to happen, the way this is going to manifest, is that you're going to be dependent on other people, but you're going to also, you're going to see those support systems kind of crumbling away. And you're gonna have to step up and see yourself as someone that uses their own value to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And that means also informing yourself. Virgo is informing yourself. Second house is your value. And the power and your lack of it is obviously an illusion, and manifesting as your inability to depend on other people. Get grounded, research, grow, share, and serve with your talents or serve with your values. In the third house, we have Jupiter retrograde, and I didn't say it was retrograde in the last video, in Libra in the third. So, on the surface level, honoring your relationships and communicating with those people in your relationships, active daily communication, will allow for that research and the expansion of your knowledge and social awareness. Social awareness is being expanded to ensure greater success. But with Jupiter in being retrograde, you're kind of also withdrawing from outer relationships to cultivate the inner one. With Jupiter retrograde, you have, you may have, in the shadow of the retrograde, you may have been expanding and, bringing more people into your life and, sharing with others, learning more about giving and getting and not just being, in your Uranus in Aries or Mars in Aries, Venus in Aries, learning more about that or seeing how relationships bring richness to your life. But now that it's retrograde, there are less parties. You're keeping fewer people or friends around. There's a sense of abundance or the sense of well-being is more important with it being on the inside than seeing the material abundance. It's more about quality over quantity. You got fewer friends, less stimulation, and that those fewer friends and less stimulation can create the same amount of good feeling as a direct Jupiter with like hundreds of people at a party. And you want to keep those people who matter the most to you the closest. You're more cautious about who you open up to and what you share with them on a daily basis. Because Jupiter in retrograde, any retrograde planet is about reflection, you're realizing through reflecting how important relationships are by looking at your past relationships and seeing them in a positive light. So that's where we're going with the Jupiter energy. Now with the fourth house, we got the black moon in Scorpio, Lilith in Scorpio. So Lilith represents frustration, repression, energy that's about to explode, and it's in the last degree of Scorpio. So Scorpio is about to explode, like literally ejaculate into Sagittarius, which is complete, unbounded energy. And Scorpio itself is kind of held back and repressed. And then Sagittarius is no boundaries, completely let go. So Sagittarius is kind of like after that orgasm. So with it being in the last degree of Scorpio, Scorpio is about transformation. Lilith is Scorpio, Pluto, Lilith are all similar energies. I would say Pluto is the lord of the underworld, and Lilith is kind of like more of a female version of that in a way, but she kind of stands on her own. She doesn't need to rule over anything. She just stands on her own. So the black moon is about to explode all the secrets or the surface level stability of your home or early childhood. So that may mean where you're living now, you may end up seeing why it all of a sudden just doesn't work for you anymore. You may find that you need to move. You may uncover a secret about your past when you were growing up, from age 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 or 0 to 7. In Scorpio could come instances where one may argue with their mother, or the mother reveals a long-kept secret one never knew, which may shock you, and you may have to kind of like meditate on it, and it's going to change your life in a very, very deep, profound way. It's where you currently live may suddenly become uninhabitable, or something may become extremely distasteful about it. You may find something out about your genealogy that completely alters your sense of emotional stability, meaning like, you're just looking into the past, looking at your ancestors. You may find yourself drawn to your ancestors and uncovering the deep, dark secrets about your ancestors, and that may completely change your idea of who you are and where you're going and what you're doing in this life, what your purpose is in this life. So there's a huge upheaval in that. You may become interested, especially with Lilith. Lilith is seen as the dark side of our nature, mainly having to do with sexuality. So with it being in Scorpio, there's a huge congruent energy there. Also, like within your family and your home, there may have been sexual trauma, so your subconscious is coming up to the surface to reveal that, because it's stopping you from, holding on to that trauma is stopping you from moving on and creating better manifestations. So Lilith is like, it's like this, I see it as like almost like you struck oil and this oil is bubbling to the surface or geysering at the surface. You've been digging and digging and digging and digging and digging, and life has been digging at you, and finally this oil is just springing up. There may have been sexual trauma in your ancestral karma, meaning it may have not happened to you in this life, or even happened to your parents, but it may have happened way back, or it may have happened to your parents, or it may have happened to anyone in your ancestral line. You're going to be dealing with some dark psychic abilities in the female ancestors in your life. So if you're into, connecting with ancestral energies, maybe if you're really attuned, if you're really psychically attuned, you're going to start seeing, maybe you're going to start getting communications from your female ancestors that might have been witches, or something terrible may have happened to them, and this goes back to the trauma in your ancestral karma. You're going to be uncovering the roots of toxic relationships with family members. It's going to come, oh, this is why, and it's going to either be you, or it's going to be them, or you're going to see the whole gamut. You may feel like a scapegoat and rejected by your family, so that's going to definitely come to the surface within yourself, or it's going to come to the surface by dealing with one of your family members, many times your mother. The fourth house usually represents the mother. But the dark side of us is sometimes the hater within us. So you may discover that, man, I've been a hater. I've been hating on people because I may feel threatened by people that I perceive as more powerful than me, and rejecting their gift of nurturing. So I'm also getting the feeling that Lilith is a collective energy, where I'm not going to talk about the political climate, but I'm going to talk about things related to that, where the energy of the people is that they've been feeling repressed for a very, very long time, and this Lilith energy around the time of the new moon is really it's really changing our identity of what we see. America. If you live in America, America is the solar sign of America is Cancer. The fourth house corresponds to Cancer. So we're going to have a huge upheaval and a huge shift and change in how we see our own country in a way. I mean, it's already been shifting, it's already been changing, but it's going to reach a culmination where, this is how it is. This is how our country is. This is who we really are. And of course, because there are hundreds of millions of people that live here, there will be probably just that same amount of different perspectives. But it's going to be a huge shift and a change through an uncovering, through oil blubbering to the surface of what our emotional stability is about. And it could work for our good, or it could work for ill. The thing about Pluto is that Pluto it always looks bad. It may look bad when you're going through a Pluto transit, but it's always to uncover something beautiful about yourself. And Pluto's about the dark side of our nature as well. But Lilith feels like a more specialized, specific energy, where it's things that you really don't want to look at, things that are totally taboo, especially on a sexual level. You have to be willing to just let that come up and not identify with it. So those are Lilith is definitely, because it's the dark moon, it could definitely be made to serve in a dark way, meaning like, I will say, a destructive way. And you have to be very, very, I would say you have to probably be even more mindful during, while Lilith is doing it, is her thing, than even when Pluto's doing its thing. It just feels like a lot more specific. So we move on. So we want to face these difficult upheavals and transform them, obviously. So Lilith also reminds me of the feminine energy saying, we're not going to take this anymore. We're not going to take this anymore. So you might see a lot more protesting, not just politically, but within your own life, within your private life. You're going to be protesting against different evils and injustices in your own home life, in your private life. So Saturn's in the 5th house in Sagittarius, which Saturn in the 5th house is a pretty funny thing. This 5th house is about fun. The 5th house is about talents. The 5th house is about festive sexual energy. And Sag is about fun. Sag is about spiritual fun, meaning like you just being who you are is the most beautiful, fun thing ever. And Saturn is about putting a cap on that. But the way that I'm seeing this is you're basically channeling creative energy in every facet of your life to produce repeatable results. It's really about taking the Sagittarius in the 5th house and basically not just leaving it to chance. It's understanding that you have to rein in your scattered self and figure out how to consistently produce that level of fun. And this may be something as simple as creating like the discipline of choosing joy and choosing happiness as a systematic thing, instead of it just being something that is just, and I don't always see Saturn as serious. Saturn doesn't always have to be serious, but Saturn is focused and disciplined. Saturn is focused and disciplined. Saturn is focused and disciplined. I said that 3 times on purpose. So that focus and that discipline and that dedication to discipline through choosing to be happy, choosing to see all the options, all the facets of your life, choosing to use your creativity in all those facets in a disciplined way, understanding how to juggle all those things and how to spin all those plates, and you'll be able to do it. But also it means limiting the amount of plates that you're spinning as well. So I've been told that Sagittarius rules options, or any mutable sign rules options, and Saturn is about limiting those options so that you can be the most effective that you can. You might want to start shifting your perspective to view discipline as a fun process. Sagittarius doesn't like discipline. Sagittarius, at its worst, does not like to be held accountable for anything outside of itself. And but with Saturn there, it's like you have to be accountable for something. And so basically, Sagittarius has to kind of trick itself into believing that discipline is fun and is part of its expansion, even though it's kind of sees the edges of the lid there. And you're creatively applying that structure to your life so that you can free yourself for future endeavors. Now we move on to Mercury and Pluto in the 6th. So all this energy, your communications, your reception and sharing of information, and your sense of deep upheaval and transformation is all focused in the realm, in the sphere of service. So you're finding ways to volunteer. You're transforming yourself through volunteering, and you're using that knowledge you're using your volunteering to transform your awareness of the systems, or transforming the systems into a supplier of daily value. So our collective focus is transforming the system that we live in into something that actually serves us. The Mercury in Aquarius is basically having this top-down view of society, or of social structures and social values, social mores, and finding new ways of communicating in creating new social mores in order to serve other people. Meaning, like maybe instead of us being cold toward each other, we could be more open toward each other. Like that's a generalized version of a social more, or a more. Also, this Mercury and Pluto in the 6th is seeing the problems of the Earth, Capricorn, and society, Aquarius, and plugging in our newfound value to participate and help. So this is definitely something. Mercury and Pluto is definitely giving us more of a worldly understanding. The reactor in Fukushima just fell into the ocean. Um, the nuclear reactor, Pluto, Capricorn is the Earth. Mercury and Aquarius is like world awareness, world societal awareness. How is this going to affect us socially? So there's this. So we need to. We might be feeling like we need to start engaging in the world, but because this is serious business. The reactor falling into the Pacific Ocean affects the entire ocean, not just the Pacific Ocean, and not just the Western Hemisphere. The Pacific Ocean is completely irradiated, and so Mercury and Aquarius would be aware of that, and Pluto and Capricorn's basically saying, "Oh man, this is really changing the entire structure of the physical structure of the Earth and our relationship to it." And it's created deep upheavals, and we actually need to create another deep upheaval in order to change that so we can harmonize the Earth back to where it needs to be. Also, I believe this is also an attempt by, what you may call the system or whatever you do to kind of thwart our ability to grab our own freedom. Pluto and Capricorn, in many ways, is kind of like, because Pluto rules absolute, at an absolute concept, absoluteness, and Capricorn rules limits. You could say it means absolute limitation, absolute enslaved mentality. Alright, so in the 7th house we also have Aquarius, but we have the Sun there. And you got a uniter towards a social cause. We want to start seeing the spiritual function of our relationships. Is how do our relationships contribute to our full realization as a world citizen? Are we enjoying we're enjoying the idea of having a deep relationship purely on the mental level? We don't see always the need to only have it be on the physical level. We don't always need to be around each other or see each other to appreciate or love each other deeply. And we in this time, the Sun, because the Moon is in Leo, it's plugging into the Sun, is, do our relationships allow us to reach our full potential? And we're very focused on that. With Jupiter being retrograde, that's kind of supporting the Sun in that way. Neptune is in Pisces in the 8th as well. Collectively, Neptune represents the collective dream. Neptune represents addiction. Neptune represents transcendence of the illusion as well. And it's just a choice between fear and love. Now, collectively, humanity is being seduced by an illusion where the subconscious root is sex, meaning we are being subliminally, and in many ways, liminally and superliminally programmed just via sex and our subconscious sexual insecurities. The entire media is an ad. The entire pop culture is an ad that is playing on and harping on our sexual insecurities in order to get us to buy into the dream, in order to get us to buy into the illusion that the world is worse than it is, to not pay attention to what's really going on, to pay attention to things that may be important, but they don't take priority as much. And it also makes us a little too focused on what other people think. Pisces is already an other sign. Like, what about the other? But the 8th house is about what other people value and what other people have. So basically we have kind of the millennial generation in a lot of ways that aren't willing to step up and find their own value, aren't willing to really do the research. They just want to kind of ride an emotional bandwagon. And I'm not saying all millennials are like this, but many of them are. And riding an emotional bandwagon where they're kind of leeching off of other people. So that's pretty much it with that one. Now, being seduced by a collective dream by the media comes through valuing only the outside. Illusory value what is sold to you by the media. With the South Node, it's important to combat illusion with critical thinking, cognitive reasoning, concrete research, groundedness, and pragmatic service. So those are the things that will combat. They won't come naturally. They'll be, why do I have to do that? But they will serve you in the long run. In the 9th house, we have Mars, Venus, and Uranus, where we're radically reinventing our viewpoint on relationships, reviewing past relationships and focusing on our own points of view, how we can be the best version of ourselves within relationships, because Aries is about being the best version of yourself you can possibly be. Now, Venus is in retrograde shadow. It doesn't go full retrograde till March 4th, so you're integrating new insights into your endeavors through aggressive pursuit. That's Mars. Venus is about going back and looking at old relationships. And then also, because Aries is there, enthusiasm is at an all-time high. So basically, like I said, we have the Sun trine Jupiter. We're having a lot of very happy times with few others. There's effortless expansion within of harmony and fellowship via shared ideas. We have Moon trine Mars and Venus, and we're easily able to translate our self-image, our inner feelings on our self-image into momentum, into creating new relationships or a new phase of relationships, or to demonstrate our worldview via example. This will substantiate the self-image that we're building on this full moon. So basically, our feelings can be translated into action very quickly. Our feelings can be translated into relationships, or since Venus is going retrograde soon, the moon right now can make it easier to instinctively understand, meaning like for our body, for our DNA to integrate a holistic understanding of our past relationships. What was our role within them? How are we being our best self? How are we not being our best self? What can we do better next time? So basically, having the moon there, we don't have to necessarily, read a book or whatever, but we can definitely find we can just simply or memories of our past relationships will come back, or an interaction with another person is going to trigger a memory of a relationship, and then all of a sudden everything will come full circle, and you'll have that holistic understanding. All right, and then also our inner self translates into action very well. Not so much speech. Speech is weird. So we have Mercury opposite the moon, and we have Mercury sextile Venus and Mars. So this is basically, again, because it's show, don't tell. What you feel inside will find difficulty. You're not going to be able to always you're not always going to be perceived the way that you feel inside. So it's more about just taking action. It's like whatever you feel, just take action on it. It's like someone's like, how do you do this? Just do it. It's like, here, let me show you. Boom. Or someone is going to show you by taking action themselves. You also use your insights. Only use your insights within to take action. You may see a big picture with something, but people may not always understand, especially with Mercury in Aquarius. It has a very unique perspective, very unique way of communicating. People may not understand you, or you may have difficulty understanding the revolutionary and beautiful new earth-shattering ideas that people are sharing with you. So it's best that they just kind of just do instead of tell. Show, don't tell. You got Uranus opposite a weakened retrograde Jupiter. So it's going to seem like being like your individuality is more important than honoring relationships, especially since you kind of pulled back with the Jupiter. You kind of like kind of chilling by yourself. You kind of maybe got 2 or 3 people around that you really, really like. You're keeping people that are really close. You're kind of assessing, seeing who's really there for you and whatever. But because the Jupiter energy is kind of weakened, the Uranus energy in Aries is saying, well, it's about being yourself. It's about being yourself. But too much rebellion can disrupt growth in relationships, because even though Jupiter is retrograde, there's still growth happening. It's just growing in the opposite direction, meaning instead of growing in the outside world, you're growing within. Instead of a bunch of material abundance, it may not always be money, it may not always be more friends, it may not always be more stuff, it may not always be more opportunities, but it's the inner sense of abundance that's more important than material abundance. We said that earlier. Now, attention to relationships also, when it, because it's retrograde, it's more subjective. So there's also a risk of attention relationships leading to losing sight of your uniqueness and what it is that you have to express. So luckily, this full moon has more emphasis on togetherness and harmony, and how individuality kind of floats within that. So individuality within unity, which is what the sun in Aquarius actually represents. It's not just about togetherness and blending. That's Pisces. Pisces is about blending together. Aquarius is about everyone is an individual and has this unique role to serve and a purpose to serve in this reality. And we are all actually, even though we're all doing our own thing and we're all being independent and free, all of our individual efforts and agendas are contributing to a large, huge macro agenda. That's what Aquarius means. That's the theme of Aquarius. I see Aries, the Aries energy of Uranus being contained within the 7th house of the sun, the Jupiterian Libra, the Jupiter in the 3rd house, and Venus being in Aries, Venus being about others, relationships, beauty, and it's because I see the Aries energy being contained within those things because self coexists with others, and this is basically the idea: understanding how to nurture and love yourself, and in doing that, you can more harmoniously coexist with other people. There will be times when the need to rebel may crush or disrespect the social awareness you need in order to become more informed. In many ways, positive relationships become your library or school of sorts. Your significant other has a lot more wisdom about a basic reality that you have overlooked than you may have previously thought. And again, retrograde Jupiter is about reflection. So it may be a past significant other that may come into your life, or that you may think of, that's gonna that you may be chit-chatting with for a little while, and they're gonna bring a lot of clarity to your life. You're gonna feel a lot more of once again a full circle thing happening. Watch out for aggression and anger. It easily breaks and shatters other people's world, while others integrate and expand your inner understanding. Balance these two planets wisely. Resistance toward the realization of social awareness, meaning like there may be a resistance between further social awareness, meaning like how to honor your relationships in greater and greater ways. Now, Uranus is square Pluto, and this is a really interesting. I think this is probably one of the more interesting aspects of what's happening on Friday, is that light, quick, earth-shattering revolution and deep systemic upheaval are at an awkward, tense standoff. Now, you're going to feel chock full of energy as life is changing you by the second. Uranus is about changing every single second. It's like Pluto is shifting, but Pluto is a heavier energy than Uranus. It doesn't shift as fast. Uranus shifts every single second. And so by looking at Pluto, meaning Aries is the self, Capricorn, which the sign of Pluto is in, Capricorn is the system, the rules. So basically you could say the society, but it's not necessarily the social norms all the time. It has more to do with the structures that kind of frame the social norms, meaning like the law. So not just the law, but definitely the law. So it's like you're seeing yourself shifting by the second, and you're seeing a shift in the system of society as well. But the shifts between yourself and society seem totally incongruent. And again, Pluto's heavier than Uranus, so you may find a slower rate of change between your energy and how you project you will conquer your goals. But you're always you're gonna see something, a heavier energy, kind of interrupting your goals and your ideals. And it's going to be interrupted by the reality, and this reality is a bulwark, a wall between you and your goals. The system, if we could personify it, is kind of touchy about being changed in response to your energy. It doesn't like that you're coming in and just kind of bullying everybody around with this Uranus energy and just changing everything so effortlessly. So it's kind of resisting in a way. The system is grumpy and grouchy about going through a shift. Now, the society, again, personifying it, is reluctant to change, but it knows that the change is inevitable, and so crankily gets dragged along. Now, your Uranian energy, your individual self energy is not dragging it along. It's being dragged along by the cosmos. But you're representing the archetype Uranus and Aries. Uranus is collective, Pluto's collective. But the individual is being championed right now as the your fiery soul is being championed as a system changer. But you have to respect the rate of change that the system goes through. So this Pluto square Uranus also signifies the ever-changing and updating reality of the internet versus how the societal system copes with that, how it's going to adapt to that. The VR, virtual reality, is the internet is updating itself every day, and it goes into high gear. But Pluto is spewing out this interruption to ensure that humanity doesn't fly off the face of the earth and lose touch with reality. It's keeping everyone grounded. It's keeping everyone practical. It's saying, hey, this system is still here. Don't reject the system entirely. Just understand that the system can shift to one that is, again, Pluto's in the 6th house. It can shift into a system that serves everyone in a very practical way. And so with that, these are all the these are all the aspects of what's happening during the full moon in Leo in the 1st house. So it's really a beautiful thing. For those of you that are setting intentions, good luck with that. And I will be setting my intentions as well. It's been pretty tough, man. It's been pretty tough for me personally. However, I'm dedicated to self-love, and I hope you are. And let's do this thing, man. Thank you for listening. Gold Diamond Astro T Magic. If you really enjoyed this, basically this podcast, and you'd like to hear more, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel. Also, hit me up on Patreon. I mean, you can donate as little as $1. That'll definitely keep me motivated to continue to create these things for y'all. I love creating astrological readings of great insight. You can also contact me at, you can find me on Instagram at Gold Diamond Astro T Magic or Gold Diamond Awareness Music. You can hit me up there if you want a reading. You want to know how your energy is going to be working out during this full moon. And that's pretty much it. So thank you so much for listening. I love you guys, and love yourself.